Hear awkward silence. Going live. Cooley Moore coming at you to let you know about the Vigilantes. Of course, everybody, I mean, if you watch the scrap, if you listen to the scrap at all, you know about the Vigilantes. But I want to be very clear and let everybody know we are moving, coming at you to let you know about the Vigilantes are moving to Patreon. Of course, everybody, so many people who said, hey, I don't do Facebook. I can't be a part of the Vigilantes. I'm not on Facebook. And I get it. We get it. So now we are moving to Patreon. It is independent of any of the social media platforms. It is its own thing. You can join us on Patreon. So what does that mean? If you're already a vigilante, man, go join Patreon. We will stop your payment. We will refund. If you are on an annual subscription, we will refund what has remained. We will make it happen. We are going to take care of you and get you in there. It's already a beautiful platform. So much going on in there. These are the things. If you're not a vigilante, I'm just asking you, why not? Go to the Patreon. It is patreon.com/thevigilantes. And you get access to the vigilante-only swag shop, the Fire Away live Q&As, behind the scenes of the scrap. You influence the scrap on where it's going to go, member-only exclusive live videos, complete access to all the past archives, all the past forums, all the past Q&As, the 15% off Vigilante code for the firehousevigilance.com store, access to the after party, man. I mean, that's every scrap, the after party. It's unbelievable. And of course, the VIP forums where we talk to some of the best in the business one-on-one in a giant meeting where everybody has a voice. It's exciting. So if you're not a vigilante, go be one. If you are a vigilante, go sign up at patreon.com so you can get it transferred over. It's going to be a fun transfer, but we're making it happen. It's already been amazing today. I think over 100 people today have already signed up, and we just announced it this morning. So go be a part. Vigilantes, patreon.com/thevigilantes, or go to firehousevigilance.com and you can click the button there. Very, very easy. Be a part. Be one of the cool kids. Why not? Make it happen. Love you all. See ya. Here we go. It is Cooley Moore, Firehouse Vigilance, weekly scrap number 243. My guest tonight is Dan Shaw. He started his fire service career in 1992 as a volunteer fire for the Howard County Fire Department in Maryland. In 1995, he was appointed to the Fairfax County Fire and Rescue Department in Fairfax, Virginia. During his tenure, he has held every rank to include firefighter, engine driver, tower lieutenant, engine captain, battalion chief, deputy chief of operations, and his current role as the chief of operations, responsible for 1,500 firefighters, 39 engine companies, 16 trucks, 8 heavy rescues across 8 battalions in a department that runs approximately 130,000 calls a year. He has been fortunate enough to teach around the country and had the distinguished honor to be the keynote speaker at FDIC International in 2022. He and Captain Doug Mitchell from the FDNY wrote 25 to Survive, Reducing Residential Injury and LODD, which was published by Penwell Publishing in 2013. He lives outside of Baltimore with his wife, 2 sons. He is a family man. He is a passionate firefighter. Chief, it is my absolute pleasure to have you on as the guest of Weekly Scrap number 243. Welcome, my brother.
Oh, thanks, bro. Just an honor to be here. Glad everybody. I'm glad our paths crossed. We're able to finally sit down and have a conversation because love what you're doing. I listen to a lot of the scraps you've put together. I mean, it's just a really engaging conversation. And I love hearing just from across the spectrum of the fire service. And you do a great job of bringing people in and doing some great interviews. So
Well,
really an honor to be here.
Thank you for being a part. It's been too long in the making, and I'm glad that we finally made it happen. So thank you for being here. Is there anything I missed in the intro? Anything you would like to add?
No, I was entirely too generous and really uncomfortable.
I love it. Please, audience, get your questions primed and ready. If you have questions for Dan or myself, get your questions ready. Sam is in the chat. He is looking for your questions in the YouTube. I'm gonna catch us up here. We've got Let's Roll from Brad Vaillancourt. Let's go LFG. Good evening, everyone watching while on shift from Richmond Hill, Georgia. Chattanooga, Tennessee, checking in from Carpe Fuego. Let's go, checking in from Michigan. Vigilante checking in. Cody Belmont says checking in from southeastern Pennsylvania. LFG. Yes, absolutely. Dan Bender said a AVG Lanty checking in from Ohio. I love it. I love it. Absolutely love it. I'm not going anywhere, Cody Brooks says. Checking in from Dobbins Fire Department, Marietta, Georgia. Let's go. So there are lots of people excited about what's going on. So let's get it on. Here we go. Let's talk about the beautiful sponsors. We'll get the housekeeping out of the way. The OG sponsor of the scrap, Key Hose. Check them out online at keyhose.com and follow them on Facebook. Affordable Drill Towers, on a mission to bring you cost-effective and versatile training props like the Affordable Bailout Prop, which allows you to practice window bailouts, ladder bailouts, and ladder high point rescues. Then they make the Affordable Standpipe Prop, which you can roll into the classroom for standpipe theory, and then you roll it into the parking lot, and you can pump realistic flows and pressures. From one of the best, with more than 60 drill towers installed, the Affordable Drill Tower comes in several configurations and comes standard with a standpipe system. Choose from 1 to 2 sets of stairs, integrate it into your existing Connex boxes for multi-story access or freestanding on a slab. All models are NFPA 1402 compliant and gain you ISO credit. The only thing that you can't do in an affordable drill tower is live fire training. Call Steve, 844-55-TOWER, or drop an email to info@affordabledrilltowers.com. And then the final sponsor, Firefighter Safety and Accountability, starts with being able to quickly find and identify individual firefighters operating on the fireground. Identifier Safety combines the best in photoluminescent materials for durable firefighter identification solutions that can glow for up to 20 hours, no switches, no batteries, which means being able to rapidly identify firefighters by name, unit, or assignment, even under hot fire conditions, all specifically designed and tested for the rigors of the job. Be seen, on scene. Identifiersafety.com. And there we go. Clean your hands. We're ready to kick it off. My brother, I tried to figure out where I wanted to start with you because there's so many directions I could go. I got Dan Shaw on the scrap, and I'm very excited about it. And but we have to start with 25 to Survive. In my head, that's where we got to start. And for those who may be under a rock and never heard of it, hit me with the why you and Captain Mitchell wrote it and the purpose of it. We'll just start there.
So Doug and I were teaching this class, and we were fortunate enough to do it at FDIC for several years. And rest in peace, Bobby Halton had come to us and said, hey, your class really kind of fits what a book would look like. Now, of course, like any firefighter, we thought like, well, you write books when you retire, not when you're still working. And right. Doug and I both are perfectionists, but huge procrastinators. So we signed a contract, and then we're like, hey, man, we got like 5 months. We got to write this book. But yeah, it really was a labor of love. And what Doug and I looked at, you know, Doug works in the FDNY, I work in Fairfax. We both started as volunteers together. So, you know, we both had been through, you know, that whole spectrum of going from smaller volunteer department combination system to larger departments to the largest department in the country. And when he and I would look at line of duty death reports and close calls, it didn't matter if it was in some rural place in Iowa, if it was in a highly populated place in LA, or anywhere in between, is that when you looked at line of duty deaths, there was a commonality. And very rarely was it ever a catastrophic failure. I mean, September 11th is a perfect example. Like, there was really not a whole lot you're going to do when the buildings collapse and brothers are trying to save people.
Sure.
But, you know, for the house fires, and the reason we looked at residential building fires is because every 64 seconds in the United States, we run a residential building fire. So that means every minute in the United States, you have the opportunity to be a hero or zero, and you craft that narrative. No one else. And so when we looked at all these reports, we saw there's a common theme. And it was always basic fundamental skills that were not being addressed, or there was a failure someplace. There was no one to be the change agent and say, hey, look, stop before the wheels come off the bus. But even more importantly, and if you've ever been part of a line of duty death and had someone come in and do a report, NIOSH, it's not to knock NIOSH, they're grossly understaffed when they come in and do a report. Sure. And they have their top 5. And when they roll into an organization that has just suffered line of duty death, they lost a brother or sister in the line of duty, and they're waiting for a report that tells them what they should do, you'll see recommendations that kind of hit like, you should have 5 on a ladder truck. Well, we got 2. How am I going to get 5? Like, tell me how to tangibly fix it. And I often think that wasn't their responsibility. And so we had a huge gap because, I'll say it over and over again, we don't have an unwillingness to train in the fire service. We just don't know how to train. Ooh. And so what we wanted to do is say, hey, look, here's 25 common things we have seen across all fire departments. And we don't want any firefighter to be deprived of the ability to be able to get better at their trade and their profession. So not only let's identify the 25 things, let's give 25 drills, tips, or techniques to overcome that.
Right.
So you could rip a page out in a firehouse if you're in the FDNY, you're in Fairfax, you're in the smallest volunteer department in the country, and say, hey, Corley, it's you and me tonight. Let's do this drill because we don't know when our 64 seconds is going to happen. So if we could have one person that did a drill that changed that trend on the fireground, then that book is a 100% complete success. And that's all we really cared about, and that's what we were looking for. Is like we're very fortunate where we work. We were provided an enormous amount of experience. We should share that with other people. That's not meant to be kept to us, but no, that's meant for us to share across the entire spectrum, however we can. And we always tell people in class, like, if you find a better drill, send it to us. We'll name it after you in the next edition of the book. Right. We could care less about credit, man. It's all about just getting the message out there, because I'd rather have drills named after guys and girls who are doing really good stuff than having a drill named after you because you had a line of duty death.
I love that. I absolutely love that. And if you haven't seen it, 25 to Survive, yes, 25 to Survive. Check it out. And I wanted to lead off with that 100%. And then we'll go to one of the topics that you brought up that I love, which is how to develop, and it ties right into what you're saying, how to develop mastery in our trade of firefighting and why it is so important to our success.
Well, we routinely ask guys in class, and I even ask people in my own department when we talk about this. And I have the privilege to teach some of our officer development school because I think it's really important. Like, the ops chief is there to have some FaceTime with our new officers. And I ask them, like, what's the definition of mastery? And you'll see people just kind of, struggle with trying to figure out what the answer is. And I always tell them, like, to me, mastery is, I liken it to like, hey, you're climbing to the top of a mountain. You're almost to the top of the peak. And then as soon as you get to the peak, the clouds part and you see there's another summit. And it means you just keep working and you keep working, because mastery is a process.
Right.
And we want to continue in that process and get better and better at our trade, because I can tell you, like in my position now, what makes me really, really fortunate and what I love is I have an incredible amount of thinking firefighters who strive to want to do really well. And I go back to what I said before, like, we don't have an unwillingness to train. We just don't know how to train. So for us to be really good and get to that point of having that ability to become masters of our trade, we have to, look at what we do. And, there's such a demand on the fire service nowadays. It's not just we are just going to the residential building fire. We're going to commercial building fires.
Right.
We're doing hazmat. We're doing so many things. If it's not police related, 911 dispatchers are funneling it over to you.
Right.
You have to figure out how to do it. So, it can be very easy for us to be consumed and not know how to become a master of our trade. And you might be in one organization that has no SOGs or no operational manuals, and that's kind of difficult because you're looking for other places. Or you might be in another place that has 940 of them. Well, where do you start to start building your mastery? So, when I look at like us, the building and mastery in our trade is to know what challenges you're going to face. And what if we could start in one spot, and the residential building is near and dear to me because of what Doug and I do. And, but that is where everyone lives. We know that. The Census Bureau tells us almost 80% of the people live in a residential building fire. Well, that's why we're here, is for them. So if 80% live there, let's look at residential building fires. So if I want to build and be a master of my trade, I got to know that every minute I'm going to go to a fire. And then what kind of fire am I going to go to? Well, data tells us you're going to go to either attic fire, a kitchen fire, a bedroom fire, a basement fire, attached garage, or outside to inside fire. So if I was sitting around a firehouse going, what should we train on? Do we have a plan for basement fires? No, we don't. Well, we're going to build a plan. And our plan is going to be based upon if there's an exterior entrance or not an exterior entrance, and how we're going to operate. How about an attached garage? What if the door's down, the door's up? Yeah, and we'll ask in class all the time, if you see an attached garage, where are you taking the first line? Some people are like, I'm always going inside.
Right.
Well, if the garage door is up and it's blowing fire out of it, what do you think you're going to see when you go inside to that 6 foot by 3 foot door? Holy shit, it's still on fire.
Right.
Like just put water on the fire and continue to advance and continue to push. But that's where, like, once we can look at the things the challenges we face, and then we can start to reach out. And that's, we always end class like we did at FDIC, and that's always a perfect place to do it. Is, you have this really distinct opportunity when you do classes and conferences, whether it's the small conferences or the big ones, is that you're typically in a room with a bunch of people who aren't from your department. And so now you got to take that opportunity. And I tell my sons this all the time. Like, what makes you successful in careers is your ability to develop relationships. So important. And so if you could just meet 3 people in that class you're at and develop a relationship and say, hey, man, you have the same thing I deal with. What do you have on this? Oh, we do this, this, and this. Let me get that. Can I have that? I mean, we'll send anyone who wants it our manuals, because Dirty Secret is about 30 years ago. We took the FD and Wise manuals. We kind of reconstructed them to what we needed. The bones are already there. We're good. So, building that relationship, that gets you closer and closer to building mastery, where you can look at everything you have to do. And then even down to the granular level. Like, I'm an engine guy through and through.
Okay.
And, so if you wrote an engine, like, to me is we have 4 in every engine. I was a chauffeur. I was a company officer. I was a firefighter. I was never a paramedic. But, each one of those positions has a specific task on the fireground. And for us, most of the time, the person riding the right bucket behind the officer is the nozzleman. The other person is the backup firefighter. Okay, well, what's the requisite skills for each one of those positions? Okay, it's going to be, checking your nozzle, knowing what the flow is, understanding nozzle feedback, where every single one of those is a drill. It's a drill we're going to do, because what are we trying to do? We're trying to condition and breed mastery, so that when you are sitting in that position, even if you arrive later because you're short-staffed and someone else gets there, and they say, they arrive and Corley says, hey, you're the backup firefighter. Man, we've been drilling on this. I know what that means. Eyes up, I'm observing fire conditions. I'm making sure I got the line fed up there, so it's like snaking up. I have my hand on the hose line so I can feel water flowing through it, or water's not flowing through it, so I know if they're in the room or not. I mean, and all these things, like, we can't assume they're going to happen. We got to train and drill on those things, because what we train and drill on, that's where the expectation comes to. Because as well as I do, man, there's especially in the fire department, there's really 2 types of people. Either you raise to your level of expectations, or they drop to your level of tolerance. And I know firemen are always looking to try to figure out what your level of tolerance is.
Absolutely.
You're the new officer, like, what can I get away with? And they're
going to find it. They are absolutely going to find it.
But you make it really hard for them to find it when you have high expectations, and then you invest in them, and you give them everything you got to start building more and more of that, so they are getting closer and closer to mastery. But then the other part is you have to do it yourself. So I always, that's the one thing I love. I still network at this position of, like, what are you doing? What are you doing in your department that I can take and use my department, or what can I share with you? Because we want to get better and better. And then more importantly, one of the things I love is when we're in a firehouse, myself and the fire chief usually go to firehouses a few times a month, sit with, the guys and girls there. I mean, the stuff you hear, that's what, I love it. That's where the innovation, that's where the progression comes from. That's where we find the best ideas, because what I might think be happening or was the best idea, I'm not doing that job anymore.
Right.
So I need that feedback from those people, because I can think about the glory days of riding an engine, but it's been a couple of years since I've been doing that. So it's really important to have that, because that's what we want to get. If we want to get the mastery, we got to have a process. We can't just say it. We got to do something about it.
Dude, I love it. I love the breakdown, the essay, everything you just said. I'm going to catch you up with a few things people said. One thing is, and what Dan is saying here applies regardless of your staffing, because he's talking about being good with what you have. Mm-hmm. And understand, I get it. If you have 4 on an engine, some of you, that's a luxury you just dream about. And for others, showing up with two, showing up with one sometimes is what you got. But absolutely, the principles absolutely apply. But I loved what you said about the networking. Every chance you get, you taught it to your sons. That
Tell them all the time.
Dude, relationships and networking is the power to move the world.
Yeah, it's huge.
Dude.
And to your earlier point, like when I started in the fire department in Howard County is probably one of the most affluent counties in the country.
Okay.
But when I was there in '92, they didn't really have much money. And I left. I was a temp there, part-time, because they couldn't afford a recruit school, which is crazy to think nowadays. But I worked in an area right off of 95, right outside of Baltimore. We had an engine, rescue, and a medic. Our minimum staffing was 4. Every day I drove the engine or the rescue, depending what it was.
Okay.
And it was just me and an officer. And so, the same theory applies. Like, you will probably get 4 people on the fireground at some point, and they're going to fill in those roles. So I get the fortune of showing up with a small militia. But if you only show up with 2 people, well, when that third person gets there and you say, hey, I want you to be the backup firefighter, if you were drilling that in the firehouse, I got it, boss. I know what to do. And it's not something new. Like, we didn't know we were going to go to a fire, and now we have to do this. So it does apply. It's a little more difficult, definitely. But we have so many incredible, thoughtful leaders in the fire service. I think anyone can figure that out.
I love it. I absolutely love it. Alan Glogowski I'm going to reword his question a little bit and throw it at you. But Alan Glogowski says, networking is awesome. The problem is selling ideas and concepts to the higher ups. Now I want to filter this through as I ask you this question, because you have been the grunt on the back of the rig all the way up to currently chief of operations of a massive organization. So you have a broad perspective that many people don't, you just have a unique perspective that a lot of people don't have the benefit of. So I really want to tap into that when I ask you this question. He says, do you have any suggestions for selling ideas and concepts to the higher ups?
Well, I mean, one, it depends who your leaders are, right? I mean, if you have leaders who, there's plenty of people when they get a rank, they think that comes with leadership. And rank doesn't make you a leader. It makes you responsible for people. But if you have a leader who is open to those ideas, then you got one foot in. But if you don't, you have to read who your leader is, right? Again, it's about relationships. I work for some people, very limited because I'm really fortunate where I work, who are very ego-based. And ego is the enemy, right? I mean, I love the stoic writing because it's so applicable to what we fire service. And so many situations you could look at and see its ego is in the way. So if you have an ego-laden boss, well, then the challenge is on you to make it so that you can make it's their idea. You don't care about credit. If you don't care about credit, it's amazing how many things you can get done. But if you can pitch an idea that makes that individual realize it's really their idea and they can sell it, great. You win. You got what you want. If you worry about credit, then it's your ego. And that's where it's so very important. Like, I can't tell how many times of proposals where, one, you have to do your homework. If you roll into anything and try to give chiefs and senior managers and leaders of organization a bunch of homework for them to do to be able to approve what you want to do, ain't gonna happen. Guarantee it. But if you walk in and say, hey, soup to nuts, here's everything. Here's why we have to do it. Here's the why behind it. Here's what I'm thinking we have to do. Here's what the cost is. Here's what the training program will look like. And here's the only thing I need from you is to say yes or no, or I can answer any other questions. The probability you getting what you want just swung in your favor.
Oof.
But a lot of idea guys, and I'm sure you have those in your fire department.
Absolutely.
Say, I have an idea. Okay, great. And?
What's that look like? Yeah.
Yeah. So you want me to do the work for your idea. I'm good. So it's a combination of a lot of things, but it really does start with knowing who your leaders are and you doing the homework and saying, how can I pitch this idea that I'm fixing a problem? And now I want to be able to look at that individual and figure out, how do I craft this so I can get to the finish line? And I really go back to it. Like, once you can figure out and you can push your ego out of the way and just get to the point of, I don't care who gets credit. I just want us to do this because it's going to be the betterment for the organization.
No, that's beautiful, man. Ego is the enemy, like you said. You referenced Holiday and the Stoic writings, man. Absolutely, 100%, brother. I love it. Looking forward to it. I would catch you up. Mastering the Craft by Rothmeyer. Have you read Mastering the Craft by Rothmeyer yet? It's a fire engineering book. I don't know if this came out last year.
I have not. No, I have not.
I don't often put guests on the spot to ask them if they've read something, but someone asked it, so I didn't know because you talk about mastery and he just wrote it. BJ Breacher said many firefighters don't look for mastery; they look for the path of least resistance, aka how little can I do and still meet the minimum standard. It's probably figure out the answer for it, and we'll have a great we'll have a bestseller.
I mean, look, I mean, Doug says this every time in class. Everyone knows what the bell curve is, right? You got your low performers, medium performers, high performers. My firehouse, my fire station, Doug's fire department, everyone has it. All you're trying to do is push the curve a little bit to this way. Right to get that low performer just up to the middle performer, get that middle performer maybe up to high performer. But it takes, you know, if you have this expectation that somehow you're going to get a low performer to what you have, and look, this is one of the toughest things, especially as a company officer, I learned in my time, is we all have a natural human bias. Like I said, I love my engine companies. I was raised by some great people who just, we were busy. They push. We were always, the expectation was here. So when I was a new officer, my expectation is everyone operates that way.
Right.
Why wouldn't you? Like, right. This is the pedigree. And I quickly realized, like, you know, again, some great mentors, it told me, you know, always judge an individual by that individual and their actions. There's a difference between what their actions are and what their intent and their personality and what they present as. And so, you know, I remember getting a guy who was chief that told me, hey, you're getting this individual. It wasn't like, do you want this firefighter? You're getting this individual.
You're getting him.
Now, if you're 6 months earlier, before some mentor had racked me across the head, I would have had this high expectation. But really, like the first time we go out, said, all right, let's pull a hose line. Pull a hose line. It was a hot mess. Now, old Dan was been pretty pissed. Like, why didn't you do it? But then I realized and said, hey, who do you work for? And he told me what captain you work for. Well, go back to raise your level of expectations, drop to your level of tolerance. This captain was all about level of tolerance. So he came out of their probationary fire school, went to this firehouse, had been with him for 1.5 years, and this is all he knew. He had no other fire service background. So the minute we took some time to say, look, we're not going to condemn you, we're going to teach you. Now, if we teach you 10 times and you still are a hot mess, that's a whole different story. But man, it took only a short amount of time between myself, you know, the other guys on the shift, to be able to sit with them and say, look, this is why we do what we do. Think about each one of these steps. You do this. He did great. After a week, he did fantastic. He was able, you know, and he wasn't going to be a high performer, but we pushed him from being a low performer to getting to being a middle performer, and not being, because that's what we want, right? We don't want liabilities on the fireground. We want assets. And once we just, you know, learn that don't condemn someone, teach them, is much easier.
No, I love that. I love that, because how easy is it to fall into that path or that trap of just, oh, this guy's a slug. This guy's, you know, he doesn't give, he doesn't care. Yeah. No, I love the empathy represented in saying where did he come from? And that is the beautiful part of it. Everybody in the audience, I love the comments. Get your questions in. Yeah, Alan Gogofsky said soundbite. Without a doubt, man. I'm time stamping as I go. If I'm looking down and not looking at you, it's because I was time stamping, taking good notes. All good. Ron Perry wants to know, would you sacrifice ISO points from proper staffing to make sure you have your highest performers available to make every incident, i.e. structure fires, tech rescues? I'm not sure if that's an either or. I'm not sure on that. I'm not briefed enough to know if that question makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, we're an ISO class 1 fire department, but that doesn't mean you're immune to a line of duty death, or you're immune to have a bad day. Not by any stretch of the imagination. Really, all that does for us, when it comes down to it, is, hey, we have a benchmark where our level of training is that we're going to get everyone up to. It's incumbent upon us what that training looks like. So at the end of the day, that's nothing more than a sticker on the side of the apparatus if you aren't doing more and more things to get your people up to that benchmark. You know, one of the things I'm really fortunate we do in our department is you have some really squared away people in our academy, and we collaborate a lot on, hey, we want to do these competencies. ORS competencies is what we call them. Right. But we want you to come up there and we want you to see this fundamental skills for the engine, the truck, the rescue, the EMS unit. And it becomes competitive because firefighters are competitive. And then we start to see their skills getting better and better. And then we see like the esprit de corps starts getting higher because they want to perform. They want to be an A-rated company. They don't want to be a C-rated company.
Sure.
And so you're starting to raise the bar up for everyone, which is so important. as an organization, because, part of my job, and this is, if you're a captain, you want to run your own little empire you have. If you're a battalion chief, like when I was a battalion chief, I had 5 firehouses, 60 guys. I want to respect the esprit de corps of each one of those firehouses, but I got to break down the silos, and we got to move together as one battalion. So it's delicate balance, right? Because
Right.
I want to respect it. So you train together. You find different ways to capitalize on there. So great drill we used to do when I was battalion chief. We have a 4-minute on-scene report, situation report. And we had a wealth of experience, and we had very new people in the battalion. So I had 2 really experienced captains and a brand new truck lieutenant. So we would just jump on. This is when like Teams and Zoom is really just new.
Sure.
And said, all right, let's jump on this. We do it at 7 o'clock at night. I'm going to play a YouTube video that I haven't really seen the outcome of it, but it has to be from a point of view of watching a fire. First engine, second engine, first special service. So first engine, like I play the video until they mark on the scene. Yeah, give me your on-scene report. All right, tell me what you would do. How would you operate? All right, second engine, hit the recording. Where would you show up? You take command. Where do you want the second line to go? Where do you want the third line to go? Where do you want the truck to go? Truck, jump on here. Now you watch it. Tell me what your search profile is. Where would you start your search? Why? Where would you ladder? Where would you want to vent? And
Nice.
so we just do those 3 things, right? They get sets of reps on the radio, which is what we want, but then they start to talk, because this engine officer would never run a call with this other engine officer because they're opposite sides of the battalion. But he's heard that this guy is really experienced. Well, he just got a free exchange because now he's critiquing him. He's saying, hey, brother, what I would do is I would say this. This is why I would take a line here. Oh, you're going to do that with the truck? I would do this. So you're breaking down the silos. So now, like as a battalion, we're all going to move together right now. And then when I was a deputy, I had all 400 square miles of the county and all 39 companies on duty that day. Now I have 8 battalions. I got to get the same thing. I get respect the 8 battalions, but we all got to move in the same direction.
Sure.
And the same is true now as an ops chief. Like now I got 20 some odd battalions, and we got to move all them together, because everyone always says, like, I'm sure this in your fire department. There's 3 different fire departments.
Yeah.
There's an A shift. Okay, yeah, there's
Like
nuances.
18 different fire departments. Right.
Yeah. Fill in the blank. We all
Right.
sit. But yeah, I'm okay with that in a sense, because there's nuances. You are not me, I'm not you, but is our mission the same?
Right.
Is what we're working towards the same? The manner in which you get there, I could care less. But we are going to get the same objective, and I want to respect you to do that. And I'm going to give you, because autonomy breeds mastery, right? I'm going to give you the autonomy to go lead what you have to do, because that's so important. Because if I can support you, then we're going to get there. I always share with guys, when every rank I've had, like as a chief officer, the first question I would always ask guys is, 1, don't show up and change everything. You'll lose everyone in your battalion. You'll lose everyone right off the bat. But if you show up and you go, and there's some things you might have to fix, but if there's not, then go on a listening tour. Just go listen to your company officers, listen to your firefighters, have a conversation. And I would always start the conversation with, like, question number 1, what do you expect of me as your battalion chief, your deputy chief, your assistant chief? Man, 99.9% of the time, without them talking to each other, you know what their answers were? Be present, be supportive. How hard is that?
Dude, that's like I wrote it down. Go on a listening tour at 0832. I don't know if you're going to top that one.
But I mean, that's what you do. Like, you go listen, you realize, like, they just want you to be present, show up, not show up all the time. Don't show up on every call with them, but like show up, share with them, listen to them, and then support them. Now, that support sometimes is like me telling you, yeah, you screwed up.
Right.
But other times, like, you got it, man. I love your idea. Let's keep it going. Because when those ideas germinate and come up through the ranks, I love it. And then the job on us as a pressure test is to make sure it works for the entire department. And if it doesn't, then we give feedback. Hey, that's a good idea, but it really works in your battalion. We got to make sure it works for everyone in our organization. So it is. I don't even know what the question was. I lost track.
Dude, there was so much wisdom. There's so much value in what you just, in the diatribe that just existed right there. I'm being serious, because, like you said, when you do go on a listening tour, when you do build those relationships, when you do have that trust with the boots on the ground, when you do come back and say, hey, that may work in your battalion, but it won't work everywhere, then all of a sudden you have that buy-in. you know?
Yeah.
And they're with you. Carpe Fuego's coming at you and said, you mentioned, and this ties right into what we're talking about, but she said, you mentioned getting feedback from boots on the ground to keep your thinking relevant. But say you're the chief of the department and you can apply it to chief of operations. How do you ensure that your view of the department is accurate?
You should never lose touch with people in the field who you trust. So I have a field of trusted agents per se that I really reach out to and I go out to all the time. I'm really fortunate in our department. So essentially I have like 3 aides. I have a battalion chief and 2 captains, and the 3 of them are very respectful, very credible. And I rely upon them. Like I told them the first day we sat down, like, what do you think your job is as my aide? And they have a list of stuff because they're just, man, they're articulate. They're on it. I'm like, you have one job, is to protect me from myself.
Nice.
Because I'm going to have all these ideas, and I need you to give me the wink and nod, like, terrible idea, boss. Don't do that. Because they still stay connected, right? And
right.
You know, the other part of it, too, is those guys continue, even though they work in headquarters with me, they go work overtime. We call it budget staffing. They go out and ride rigs. They stay connected. And I really rely upon that to come back to me. And then I have some people that, you know, it's the fortunate part of coming up through the ranks that I'm still super tight with. So I can call a truck lieutenant I've known for 20 years. Hey man, I'm thinking about doing this. What do you think? Am I off base? And then, you know, my ops deputies. So I have 6 operations deputies in the department, and they're all really squared away. And when we have conversations, I routinely say to them, like, here's an idea that came up, or they have an idea. What do you think? I want to hear from each of you, because
right.
You have 6 different perspectives of each one of your divisions you run. What do you think? And if we all agree, then we will do this. And it really, I mean, it's tough, right? It's easy to get distracted, but it really takes being mindful to say, like, before I do this, did I check to make sure this is going to work? Because on
right.
paper, in a climate-controlled office with no stress, it always looks good.
Right.
But on the street, like, does this really look good? Even with tough decisions, I mean, sometimes there's some things we have to do that are not favorable. I don't really want to do it. We're in a position we have to. How can we make this the best? And a lot of times it's just listening to the guys and girls in the firehouse who are impacted by it. And if that's what it takes, great. That's easy enough. And you'll learn a couple things out of it too that you didn't think about.
No, and what I really love, Dan, is that it absolutely ties right back into relationships.
Yeah.
Like, it really does. Because it's full circle back to the absolutely. How do you feel about the A tool replacing the Halligan bar on a structure fire? I don't know if this is Brian Passmore wants to know. Is this a local thing?
Yes, he used to work with me.
Okay.
Throw it in the trash. We used to always joke, you know, A tools like that little tiny Halligan bar.
Right.
And I used to always throw them off the apparatus. I'm like, get that out of here. We only use a Halligan
Okay.
bar. So as soon as you said that, I'm like, that had to be someone for my job.
Okay, fair enough. Brian Passmore, he's the one who asked.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. Good man.
Jake J wants to know, what was your go-to company drill?
So I really I had a lot of them, right? But the number one that I loved, it was kind of twofold. Our dress drill, which was that it wasn't us dressing to get on the apparatus, because we typically had a rule, like, if the captain's door closes, we're leaving. Like, you should be in the rig. We know that. But where it really mattered was us, when we get to the front yard, or mom and dad saying, my kid's on the second floor window, and then one of you is fumbling to get dressed. So we would just do a drill where we would sit around the back of the bay, all in your full gear, like you're ready to cross the threshold. You just stretch that line, or, you know, you're getting ready to force a door. And then they work together as partners, and we time it. And you watch how everyone's doing. No dropping down to your knee to put your mask on. No tightening 5 straps. It's your mask. 1 strap, you're done. You know, how to put your hood on with 1 hand. And then you look at each other and make sure you check each other. And so we do that a couple times. You know what happens is, you know, I worked most of my career in multi-function houses, so an engine and truck or engine and tower. And then you realize, like, everyone is down to under 30 seconds. So what's going to happen when we get to that front door? We're all going to be under 30 seconds. And we know we're going to have each other's backs. Like, I'm not going to let you walk in that door, Corley, without looking at you and going, hey, bro, your hood's off your face. Because
right.
You get burned, you're out of the game. But, you know, if that is the one step that makes us more and more closer, or gets us closer and closer to mastery, man, we're winning. But the other thing we would do out of that was, well, all right, we got all our gear on, and we would end up sitting there in our gear, didn't matter what the temperature was, for long periods of time. What do you carry in your pockets and why? Because a lot of guys came out of recruit school with the equivalent of a rescue squad in their pockets. God forbid if they ever went down, because they're about 400 pounds with all the crap they have.
Right.
And so we start learning from each other, right? We start learning from each other about what you carry. So like when I was an engine officer, everyone had to have six door chocks. I don't care what you carry, but when we go through doors, there is no way we're going to get held up by a door. And engines control doors, we chock doors, because we have a hose line, we put water on the fire. And so we start to migrate into it. Like guys started cutting their own. Brian's one of those guys. Start cutting our own door chocks for everyone, so everyone can have a door chock. We keep them under the rear of the hose bed. Some guys from PG who I was good friends with did that. Hey, you pull a hose line, take a door chock. It's on us. I don't care. If you can chock that door and control it for us, great. But then we realized like some other things. We start learning the mastery. Hey, how many times when you guys pull a hose line, what shoulder you put it on? I put it on my right shoulder. Okay, where are your door chocks?
Right.
Well, I'm right-handed, my right pocket. So if you ever seen a guy who's at a door holding a hose line, trying to use his foot, and then reach down and do this, like how about you put your door chocks in your left pocket, because then when you get to the door, you can reach and do this. I mean, not a big drill, right? But
right.
Closer and closer to mastery. Those are the seconds. Those are the seconds that we're trying to save, because that might be the person who's trapped. That might be the engine or truck who's trying to do a search. It's waiting on you to get that hose line. All these things matter, and those seconds start to turn into minutes. So if we can save that and shave that, because we're getting more and more, and that's what I always preach, and I'm probably our biggest cheerleader of our department. We are our professional fire department. That has nothing to do with the salary.
Right.
When I see them, they're professionals. Right. They show up and they're professionals on the fireground. They're disciplined and they move with purpose and they really perform. And you want to breed that. You want more and more of that. And so just simple drills like that. It ended up when I was an engine officer, we had probably 80 drills for every piece of for every position on that apparatus, whether it's driver or it's officer. And then, next probie, because we would get a probie almost every year. Next probie shows up. Okay, we start the drills over. But now it's not me doing the drill. It's guys like Brian doing the drill, or it's my driver doing the drill. And they've added a couple more because they've picked up some things they want to teach.
Right.
And so now it's just running itself.
Yes.
So there's really not one better than the other, but I like starting at the very basics. Like if we want that perfect fire, which I haven't been to yet, then we got to think about every step that you have to take to get to that perfect fire. And every one of those steps is something you should drill on, because that's how you get better and better at it. You can't just leave it to chance and then assume everyone you're with, because as Doug always joked, like on the engine, we have that umbilical cord of life we're connected to. And the truck or rescue tends to go off and do things individually. But you operate as a team. And you don't want to have a weak link on the team and go, disparage that guy. He's no good. Oh, okay, he's going to the fire with you. You're going to rely upon him.
Right.
So you might as well invest in him and train with him.
Trying to figure out which way I want to go. I got questions coming out from the audience, and I've also got topics I want to cover with you. But let's go with this one. Scott Wells wants to know advice for someone that's about to become a lieutenant in a 4-station city, besides the obvious: learn, teach, do, etc. So, Dan Shaw's advice to someone about to become a lieutenant in a 4-station department.
It doesn't matter how many stations you got. Small unit leadership, and this kind of leads in one of the things you and I were talking about. Small unit leadership is absolutely essential to any department success. And the reason I would tell you this is so important, think about when a firefighter walks into your firehouse on overtime or detailed, and you say to them, what's the first question you ask them? Hey, who's your captain? Who's your lieutenant? They don't ask who's your chief of operations. They could care less about me. But why do they ask about who's your lieutenant, who's your captain?
Right on.
Because you have the greatest impact on them, and they typically mirror who you are. So when you decide to accept that mantle of being an officer, which is so vitally important, you have to understand the impact you have. And so it's a hard transition. I mean, I went from being a driver for 7 years, 7 years as an engine driver, to an officer. And my God, man, can I have a wheel over here? Yeah, I want to do some of those things, but you can't, right? Because if you do the job, they're not doing a job. They're not getting to become masters of the trade. Oh, by the way, who's doing your job?
Oh, it's beautiful. It's beautiful.
So I mean, so incredibly tough. So it really is so important. If you are a new company officer, is to understand that you will have a tremendous impact, and you get to craft what that impact is going to be. Because no one learns in recruit school when they come into the fire department. Hey, here's what a lieutenant does. They learn it when they meet you.
No, and the best part, man, and it's a two-way street, because not only do you know when you walk into that station, they say, "Hey, who is your officer?" And they judge completely based off of the officer's
Oh, yeah.
reputation. But then they represent that officer and they build that officer's reputation. And whether they
100%.
care enough to protect it or throw it out the window comes down again to that relationship that was built, man.
And invest. I would say the other thing is too is you invest in every one of your people. Like I saw it a couple of times. Like we have relief pools, right, where you have a couple of officers on relief in the battalion, and sometimes these guys would be like, "Well, that guy Corley, man, he's no good."
Right.
Oh, okay, well, I'm a tenured officer, and I'm not investing in you at all. But I love my guys and girls. Well, what happens when I go on vacation? Who's riding the right front seat? The guy I didn't give any time and attention to and up and all because he probably was asking for it. So if I love my people that much, why am I not making sure my replacement for that day, that tour, that week is at the same level I am, and I'm supporting them as much as I can? But
Right.
again, it comes back to the team. Like, how do we make the team better?
Mm, mm. Small unit leadership. I love it, man.
It's huge.
Brian Naley wants to know, how do you feel about dismount assignments? And I'm assuming you mean seat assignments, but dismount assignments on engines. I'm implementing this in my station, and we drill from those assignments. For
I
or
mean,
against?
I'm for. I mean, like as I told you before, I mean, for me, I didn't care what person was riding the right bucket. They're always going to be the nozzle firefighter. Because I want them to know like that is your job.
Right.
When you do that, right, you eliminate the front yard conversation, but you build pride. And when firefighters have pride, they want to be better and better. They're proud of what they're doing. They want to get better. So I never had an issue with it because we know, and God, if people aren't reading what Jay Brezler is doing with his stress inoculation stuff and the impact of stress on human performance, and a lot of other people, but Jay's rare. I mean, so much more we pick up out of that. But when your brain is under chaos in a stressful environment, you're not going to think clearly, right? I mean, your decision making goes in the gutter, your tactile function goes in the gutter, your heart rate goes up, which means now you have tunnel vision, auditory exclusion, and now you're going to go, hey, today I want you to be the nozzle firefighter.
Well, yeah.
They're not going to perform.
Right.
And you could blame them till you're blue in the face, but you might as well look in the mirror because it's you as a leader that didn't prepare them for that.
Right on. Boom. That's right there, man. Beautiful answer. Going back to pockets, I love this one. Alan Gogowski, going back to our earlier discussion about your drill. If you had to pick a few items to carry, what would you choose?
Again, I go back. I was an engine guy through and through, right?
Right on.
Door chocks, a spanner, a spare wheel for the high rises we went to, and a rope if I came, or we had a large piece of webbing. If I came to a victim, to be able to pull them out, and then a small piece of rope is a rope hose tool. That was it.
That's it. Very simple, very easy answer.
I mean, we're an engine. I mean, I'm fortunate, right? So, because trucks could do truck things, rescue do the rescue thing, or as an engine, we knew what we were showing up to do.
I love this question, Dan. It's coming at you. It's from Michael Ramirez, and I like this question because of your personal career path. He says, "Why do you think it's important to promote from rank to rank, and what do you say to those who probably had no choice and took a promotional opportunity and skipped a rank?" I don't know your path or how it worked out for you, but what was your motivations and introspections and hindsights, regrets, and introspections mainly, just hindsights? What do you?
Well, I would always start off with telling you, like, it pains me when I hear people complain about their department or complain what rank they are. None of us were conscripted.
Right on.
So you sound like an idiot when you say, like, I hate this place. Well, then leave. Or, take a demotion or promote out of the position. But I loved every one of the positions I was in. And I would tell you, like, when I got promoted driver, I'm like, I'm good. Rest of my career, I'm solid. And then, I'd been driving for a good amount of time. And then I looked to my right. I'm like, this is a low end of the bell curve. I think I could do a little bit better than that. I'm willing, and I can't complain about them, right? I can't complain about them if I'm not willing to go do it myself. So, I took the lieutenant's exam. I got promoted to lieutenant, and really, quite frankly, like, trucks were not my gig. So I'm like, I have to go through the lieutenant to get the captain. So I spent a few years as a lieutenant, and then I got the captain, and man, I loved being a captain. Absolutely loved it, because you had your own fire department, really. I mean,
Right.
every single day you sat at a kitchen table, and you can never underestimate the impact that you have sitting at a kitchen table. Like, if you can't lead lineup, that's what we called it, 0700 hours, then how can you lead them down a smoky hallway?
Boom.
And so when you can sit there at a kitchen table and have a conversation with these people, and then you start to see like this young talent that's coming in, and they are just fantastic, and they make you look really good, because they're thinking in the next level. They want to do more and more and more and more, because they want to get better at their job. And I loved being a captain. And then the position, I said I didn't want to make chief until I got to 20 years. And I saw like, battalion chief was a really kind of great rank. And the two battalions, our two busiest battalions, I knew they were going to come vacant in about my 18th and a half year. So I'm like, you know what? If I want to work in battalion 4 or 6, I got to take the exam.
Right.
And I was fortunate to go to, that battalion and get promoted to chief. And I love that. And then I worked for a boss that was like, not so much.
Right.
But again, I can't complain about the deputies if I'm not willing to throw my hat in the ring and do it myself. So I did, and I was really fortunate to get promoted to deputy, and that was a fantastic position, because you had your own fire department. I mean, after 4 o'clock, the fire chief's not in the headquarters. You're the fire chief, like, it's yours. And then the assistant chief position, honestly, like, it was something that I was good at deputy, but the opportunity to be the ops chief was really enticing. Like, I got to do some really great stuff because of the people I worked with and the ideas that germinate from them. If I could do that for all 3 shifts, man, that'd really be exciting. And the biggest thing, and you never know, right? I mean, you look at some of our most notable presidents. I mean, hell, they say Lincoln's the best president. We assassinated him. But it's all about impact, right? We talk about the impact you have. And I always tell guys, I say this a lot of times at retirement functions, that especially when I look out at a retirement function and see a sea of people there to support wherever individual's retiring. No one cares about the number of medals hanging off your Class A's. What they will talk about is the impact you had on them. And that's what matters, is the impact you have on individuals. Because if you impact individuals, you're most likely impacting the organization. And that's just a win-win across the board. And the quicker you realize that, like, who cares how many medals you get? I mean, that's great. And I don't think anyone's ever got a medal just because of one action you did. It's because it's a team. Like, someone drove me there. Someone forced that door. Oh, I happened to discover the person who was there unconscious. But at the end of the day, that what people, and the most impactful people in my career is because they had an impact. They had an impact. I mean, I go back to when we did 25 Survive, we had to write the forward and, who we kind of acknowledgements. And I went back to when I was a volunteer firefighter, a guy named Andy Liebno. He was a paid guy. I was a volunteer. He's a paid guy working 24-hour shift. I wanted to ride the rescue squad. 16 years old. I want to ride a rescue squad.
Right.
He said, okay, you come in every night I'm working at 1,900 hours. We'll do one compartment. And we did every night, 1,900 to about 2,200 hours, just me and him, soup nuts, everything in there. Now, at 16, I had no understanding of that. But then it dawned on me years later, I'm like, this was a paid guy who he didn't even have to engage with a volunteer if he didn't want to. But he had been working for 12 hours. And he set aside 12 from 7 o'clock till 10 o'clock at night to sit there with me and go over every single thing and give me all the knowledge he could. And that stuck in my head forever. And when I became a paid firefighter, I'm like, I'm not paid that back. And that's why he's in the forward of the book. Because that guy didn't even know he had the impact just because he was just being him.
Right on. Hey, Chief, you got to calm down. I only have so much paper to write the timestamps down on. Being very serious, man. Very serious. Jake J wants to know, as an ops chief, how do you pick the individuals that you trust to get tasks done? Or how do you decide to give opportunities to individuals to help make a change? What do you use to
So
identify, man? Sorry, good question. Great question, Jake.
no, it's a really good question. I mean, sometimes you don't have to identify them, right? They identify themselves. You see someone with passion who has more than an idea and they're willing to go do it. The hardest thing a lot of times for people is one, and we're guilty of this in my organization. You tend to pick the same 20 people to do everything.
Right.
Well, then you run the risk of wearing them out. Well, I try sometimes, like, tell me who the next person is. Ask that person you usually pick. Who's the next person? I don't know them, but let's trust them. Let's see what they do. And when someone comes to me, like I'm thinking of this one firefighter we had who brought this idea up. He's a firefighter, and he brought this idea up. It was a great idea. He had done all the legwork. And the things he didn't do the legwork on is because he just didn't know how the process worked. You got it, man. I was able to, my aide was able to work with him and get this thing to come to fruition. And it wasn't something major, but it's another player. It's another player, another person who's wanting to do it. And then I go back to small unit leaders. I really rely upon the captains who are in the firehouses all the time. When I see a name come up, or I'm having a conversation with a captain and say, hey, who's your A players? Make a note of that name. How can we get that person in? And, let's hope none of them go on light duty. But if they go on light duty because they get injured, I rope them into operations. Let's go. You're here on day work, man. Let's see what you can do. Or let me expose you to how the real fire department operates behind the scenes. So that'll help you when you go back out to the field.
Right on.
Really, I rely upon the team. The team keeps me in the loop because it's really impossible to know that 1,500 firefighters. So I really rely upon the team to tell me, like, hey, this guy, A player. All right, good. How can we get them to contribute to the organization? Because when you get to my rank, right, one of the things we look at when we're promoting people to these positions, the fire chief's the only one who can promote, but obviously he always wants the counsel from us. Organizational contribution. That's what we look at. Like, it's one of the main things I look at. Did you sit on the sidelines and just did nothing? Or were you always contributing? Whether it was projects, it was committees, you were putting your voice in there. Because I learned very early in my career, again, another great mentor. I served on a lot of committees where we wrote the operations manuals for the region. And a really astute mentor told me, you want to make changes? Right. That's how you make changes, right? So we have operations manuals. When do people read operations manuals? When they're taking a promotional exam or they're getting disciplined, they violated them. So if I want to change a culture of, for a firefighting tactic, if I put in an operations manual, what do you think everyone's going to start doing? Because when they promote, they have to do it. They have to learn it. And now they're going to start doing it on the fireground. So now it becomes part of our policy. It starts becoming what our doctrine is and how we operate. And now we've changed the organization. And I'll use like a 360. A 360 wasn't something when I got in the fire department. We did. Cherry Road happened. That was a seminal moment for us. But, and then you start to write it more and more. Like we put it in the lab, and the lab just became like a physical feat, run around the building. But then we spent some time in the manuals talking about the why. Why do I want you to take a lab? It's not about being undisciplined. Like, we want you to find out where the fire is. We want you to see where the topography differences are. We want you to see where the potential victims are. We want you to figure out where your attack is going to be. When your firefighter is going to be ready when you come back, look at you going, hey, Lou, you took a lap. What do you got for me? Where's the fire? And how do we create that culture? Because of what we wrote. And then what you train on. And that becomes part of your promotional exams. And that starts to become what your culture is. And you're working towards that. So it really is a long answer to a short question. But it is kind of like the path is like you rely upon your team. You don't need to know everyone, but you need to have a lot of people to be able to connect and know them. Go back to networking and relationships. I wish I could remember 1,500 names. Not going to happen.
Not going to happen. No, I love the fact that you said once you identify someone, then you ask them, hey, who's next? Who's next?
Yeah.
I love that.
I mean, it's like succession planning. Like
they know them. They do know them. Yeah, dude, I love that. I've never, and again, it's so simple once you said it. So I feel dumb for not saying, but man, that's great. Ask them.
I mean, any position you go into, right? I mean, like many times when you put someone in a position, training academy, like our first it's called field training. They train all our people in the field. You should be thinking about who your replacement is the day you start working there, so you can start coaching them. My age, right? They did a fantastic job. 2 of them are going back out to the field, and they picked 2 all-stars. So they got 2 all-stars coming right up behind them because they sold their position. They educate them like, this is what will benefit your career. They leave it to chance or, for them to figure it out. No, I'm going to reach out to you, man. I think highly of you. And so I'm reaching out to you to think, I think you'd be good in this position. Okay. I might be in because I trust you. And now you're going to give me some good insight that might be beneficial for my career. And I can give back to the department.
Love that. Another one, man. There's too many questions, but I'm gonna this one, and then I'm gonna get to books. But Justin Lorenzen wants to know, asking you, J Lo saying, how do you encourage the engaged firefighters that don't want to leave the rigs? Because this is an issue. They don't want to leave the rigs to come to training to help build the culture / organization with individuals that are into the job and care. How do you get them to? How do you get them? What's your advice for your different levels?
Difficult,
right?
and we still struggle with it, right? I mean, I love hearing some organizations where if they get asked to go to the training academy, they're like, my God, you want me at the training academy? That's fantastic. We're in a position where a lot of times we have to end up, we were a few years ago, we're in a position where we had to tell people we're going like, Corley, listen, man, it's your time up. You have to go to the training academy. And we started to change the script a little bit. And the one big thing we changed the script on was, there's some positions you have to be when you're a training academy where, you're doing programs and you can't be there for a short period of time. You got to be there for at least a couple of years to learn the ins and outs of it.
Sure.
And those guys, the biggest part, go back to the succession planning, right, is you should start figuring out who your replacement is and start to be able to have that direct dialogue. But the other thing that really worked out is for the positions that are just coming up to assist with the recruit schools, we do them for 6 months. And we say, all right, you come up for 6 months, you don't lose your position. You'll go back to your position you were in, but for 6 months you come up and you get to invest your knowledge into the next generation of firefighters. And I would tell you a good bit of those people say, hey, I'm good, I'll stay for 12 months. Because they see they're enjoying it, because they have a tangible impact. Like they're crafting the next fire service, next generation of the fire service. They're doing it. Not me, not anyone else, them. By what they're doing in that firehouse. So it is difficult. And I wish I had the secret sauce to offer you that, but I think a lot of it is succession planning, doing it really well, and then building that's a very proudful, that's a position to be very proud of because of what you're doing. You have a tremendous impact on that next generation of the fire service. And I go back to you can't complain about what they're doing or how they're being trained unless you want to go be a part of it and be a part of that change.
Boom. There's the challenge to close out the answer, and I love it. Which takes me to one of my favorite questions. I've been wanting to ask you this since basically your 2022 keynote speech, because you referenced Mattis in the speech, and I love General Mattis's approach to reading, and of course, all of it. But book or books that you think firefighters should be reading. Doesn't have to be a firefighting book, but what do you think firefighters should be reading?
Well, I mean, you reference back to the speech, right? I love that when Matt said it, right? If you're not reading anything, you're functionally illiterate. And who would want to work for someone who's functionally illiterate?
Boom.
No one. Not at all. So, and the other part of it, too, is it's all free experience. Like, you don't have to pay, you have to pay a little bit amount for it, but you're learning free experience. So I will go back to 2, man. They sit here right on my desk. One, I just finished reading, Legacy by James Kerr. You can see how many tabs are in this bad boy. I played rugby. I played Gaelic football. So it was near and dear to me. But that book was incredible that you could take those things and you could parlay it into what we do. But I would think any firefighter who never read this, 20,000 Alarms, Richard Hamilton. It's out of print, 1975. He was the most decorated firefighter in the New York City Fire Department before Ray Downey. You read that, and if you're not charged up to go run into a fire, I don't know what will get you charged up. I mean, this thing is like the Constitution to me. If you're coming to my house, you need white gloves to be able to pull this out and look at it.
Love it. I was not a rugby player. The All Blacks and what they can teach you about life. One of my favorite books. And I absolutely love that one. And then 20,000 Alarms. Such a very hard book to get a hold of, but if you can, absolutely. And there you go. So it takes me to one of my favorite. Let me pull my notes because I don't even have them up right now. Haven't needed them. That's the best part. One of my favorite parts of the show. This is the 5 questions for firefighters. It started out a long time ago as 1 question. It evolved into the 5 questions. And through the episodes, it has become the 5 questions for firefighters version 3.3. The answers are completely your opinion. There's no right or wrong. The points are arbitrary, assigned by me with the help of the audience. So my question for you out the gate is, Chief Dan Shaw, are you ready for the 5 questions for firefighters?
Let's do it.
All right, here we go. Number 1. Audience, get ready to score. What is the skill that has carried you through your fire service career?
Trust. Unequivocally. When I see firefighters, probationary firefighters, and I get the chance to talk to them right before they graduate, is that, we all took an oath and we all are here for the right reasons. But the reason you're doing it, I talk about mission first people always, the reason you're doing it is because of the person, the guy or girl to your right and to your left. And if you don't trust each other, then that relationship it just fails. If you're a company officer and your firefighters don't trust that what you are going to do on the fireground is in their best interest and you're taking care of them, you're done. And then like in my role as a chief, if I can't trust our people every day to be able to go out the door 130,000 times and do the best thing for the people we took an oath to serve, then we're not meeting the mark. But the other part is I have to earn the trust of them every single day. And that's tough, right? Because there's a lot of tough decisions we have to make. But that trust is that I hope I'm making the best decision for the organization while trying to take care of you every single day. So that when you go out in the street, the highest priority for me is that. And each one of those ranks, trust is number 1.
Oh, I can say this easily. Like I asked the question, and it was like, I don't know, it sounded like maybe a quarter of a second between me finishing asking the question and you saying trust. And when you that quick, man, I'm telling you, max points. Absolutely. And then your answer absolutely blew it out of the water. Absolutely blew it out of the water. Up and down. And Alan Glogowski said it best, double max points. Jason Careview said trust equals max points. And David Stender said, oh, boom. Without trust, you won't be given responsibility. Absolutely, huge. Max. Tons of maxes flying. Trust is huge. Scott Wellis just said it.
And we didn't even talk about the trust of the public in us.
Right. Oh, brother. The levels.
Tell me any other profession where you can walk into someone's house in the worst day of their life and say, please, here's my child. I've never met you before. Take care of my child.
Right.
Or here's my worldly possessions. Come on to my house. I don't care what you do. Dude, all because of the uniform you wear. Not because your background check. No. The uniform you wear is a beacon of trust to them.
Boom. Dude, you already had max points. You didn't have to double it up. You already had it. Number 2, it's Jobtown. It's time. You're en route and responding. You got to think of the scene from Backdraft. He's slapping the tape into the cassette deck. McCaffrey's jumping on the rig. But what song are you playing en route?
Man, I love some good rock. The first one comes to mind because it just starts off strong. Master of Puppets, Metallica.
Yes.
I mean, how can you not get the vibe off of Master of Puppets?
Dude, absolutely. And this is the first time Master has been on here. So, okay.
Really?
I was actually watching a Guns and Hoses, or Smoke and Guns. It was a MMA fight between police and fire here in Oklahoma. And the first guy walked out to Master. That was his walkout song. Was Master of Puppets. And I was just talking about it yesterday, saying to my son how it's either that or For Whom the Bell Tolls would be.
It's tough.
Yeah.
There's a lot of great songs, man. It's tough.
Just because we were talking about it last night, but absolutely. And there is a Spotify list where you can find every song that's been suggested, and so
that's awesome.
and Pandora, they're both out there. So and there goes Carpe
awesome.
Fuego said Max. Here comes the maxes, triple max points. Oh, now they're giving triples, triple max points for Master of Puppets from Brian Daly, obviously a Metallica fan. No, it is absolutely. Number 3, what is Master of Max points? Max Talica points. Okay. Great puns. Thank you. Max Talica. Number 3, what is your favorite fire service tradition? And we exclude the firehouse kitchen table just because it has been the number 1 answer. So we've besides the firehouse kitchen table, what is your favorite firehouse tradition?
I mean, rightly so, but I would tell you, maybe it's my Sicilian Irish roots. It's breaking bread with our people. I can't tell you times sharing a meal with firefighters. It doesn't matter where it is. Kitchen table doesn't matter. There's very few conversations I try to have with some of our chiefs, not in this role, other roles. It's usually, hey, let's go grab lunch. Because when we can sit and break bread together and there's no stress, like it just, and maybe it's a familial thing for me,
Sure.
my background, but like it's tremendous. And some of the greatest conversations I've had has been sitting there breaking bread with firefighters, fire officers, fire chiefs. Doesn't matter where it is. I love it. And the thing that I love about it is it doesn't matter what uniform you wear or where you're from. When you sit down, you have a meal, you start talking shop. It just, man, it's the good stuff. It's where it's at.
No, I can't argue. I cannot argue. And I wanted to say, hey, that's almost too close to kitchen table, but you broke it down. You broke it down well enough to say that I can say, you said.
I snuck it in there.
That familial,
Yes.
There we go. 3 for 3 max points. This one is on the clock. Let me see if I can make the clock work. This one is on the clock. I'm trying to make the clock work. Here we go. I'll put it up here. I think you can see it. Maybe. I don't know. Is it working? Let me see if I hit play. Maybe not. This is a high.
I'll take your word for it.
This is a high quality production. Here, you can see it. The audience can't. Can you see it up there?
I can't now.
No?
But I'll trust you if you tell me the buzzer goes off.
All right. You'll have to trust me. For some reason, it's not. Okay, it's all good. It's on the clock. You get 4 people to put on your Mount Rushmore of the fire service and go.
I tell you, if you give me an inanimate object, I put my patch up there first because of our people. But I was thinking about, Mount Rushmore was constructed because they wanted to have the 4 most impactful people in our country. And so I think about the most impactful people in the fire service. So I would go with Pete Lund, who's from the FDNY, and I can explain, some background on that. James Braidwood.
Braidwood.
And I can explain that. I mean, incredible person. I mean, anyone who's called the master of engines, you're number 1 in my book. Andy Fredericks. Unfortunately, I never had the pleasure to meet him, but an incredible teacher and a thoughtful leader who just gave and had an impact and still has an impact. And I would finish with Bobby Halton. Bobby was a guy who just gave me the chance and the opportunity to teach at FDIC, to share our message, gave me the humbling privilege to be the keynoter in 2022. And that was all over a handshake. And it was all about integrity. And there's nothing I wanted from him, he wanted from me, other than us just to be, brothers and take care of each other and do the right thing for the right reasons.
Beautiful, man. Lund, Braidwood, Fredericks, Halton. Dude, that's a powerful. If you're
Braidwood, 1830.
Yes.
Braidwood wrote a book.
Talking about flow path.
Yes, you should keep the doors and windows shut until you get a hose line on it, because the fire will get bigger in direct proportion to the amount of air.
Yeah.
Groundbreaking
research here.
It's probably because he's chewing on a mustache and crawling down a hallway in jeans. And supposedly he died at a fire trying to take whiskey to his men.
Seriously.
So, winning.
That's the kind of, I don't know if that's a true story, but that's the kind I want someone telling about me 100 years from now. I love it. Hey, there you go. Okay, final question. The question, it is heavy fire, searchable space. You've said all night you're an engine guy. But heavy fire, searchable space. Would you rather be assigned to the nozzle or the first in on the VES?
Well, my heart says nozzle. But, much like we had a recent fire that unfortunately was a fatality, and we were talking about it afterwards. And I had shared with those guys, we all took an oath to potentially give our life for a perfect stranger who's in peril because of fire. And we never wish that on anyone, but if it does occur, we want to be there to be able to have that positive impact. So I would go VI. Yes, and that's why we exist. Is if you have the opportunity to be able to pull someone from that and save their life, man, there's no greater feeling than that.
Boom. There you go. 5 for 5, max points. Absolutely crushing it on the 5 questions for firefighters without a clock. And you beat it with 9 seconds to spare, by the way.
Oh, there we go.
Just so you know, just to keep you posted. 5 for 5, max points. That officially puts scrap number 243 in the books. My brother, Daniel Shaw, if someone wants to get a hold of you, what is the best way to do so?
Obviously, you can hit me on my Instagram, which is Chief D Shaw. It's the same as my email. It's chiefdshaw@gmail.com. I'm still, working with guys at Traditions, and that's, where Pete comes from. I had the privilege to work with Pete and learn from him, really not work with him. Just the secret was I was teaching with him, but I was really learning from him every single day because, again, a guy with tremendous amount of impact, retired, and all he wanted to do is give and share his knowledge. So you can check over at traditionstraining.com. And hit me up at anything you need.
Love it. Absolutely love it. Housekeeping. Everybody, go to firehousevigilance.com. Let me see. Carpe Fuego said that last answer is my second favorite of all scrap history. Just so you know. Second favorite of all scrap history.
Wow.
Quite okay. Vigilantes, go join. If you're not a vigilante, go be one. $5 a month. We just moved to Patreon. We are a group of like-minded souls. Man, when you're with a group of like-minded souls, you are never alone. Go become a vigilante. Join the Patreon. It's $5 a month. The scrap after party will be right after the scrap is over, and the vigilantes get the invite. Next week, one of my biggest mentors, Chief Scott Thompson, is coming on. Then Mike Galliano, following him up. He is the May 8th. It was a mystery guest, but I was able to confirm Mike can do it. And then it is Anthony Castro. So how is that? It's like Dan Shaw, Scott Thompson, Galliano, Castros. How's that for a four week boom, 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 boom? 2024 is killing it, and it's going strong. Thank you, Chief Shaw, for being an unbelievably amazing guest.
Oh, thanks for the invite, man. Loved it. Love every second of it.
Sam will be posting the Vigilante, the after party scrap link. So join up. Dan has agreed to come and be roasted for his performance on the scrap. He has agreed to hear the feedback and your thoughts about the episode. So please be there. Audience, everybody for coming to YouTube. Thank you for coming and being a part of this first time ever YouTube only scrap. Your questions are phenomenal. You are what makes the scrap magical. You showing up and asking great, insightful questions that challenge the guest, that keep them thinking, that keep me asking good questions. Without you, the scrap would not exist. So thank you for tuning in live. I love you all. Remember, mutts don't scrap. I hope the tones stay silent unless it is burning. Everybody, stay safe out there.